They say love conquers all, but what if love isn't enough? Aisha thought she had finally found something real. After 85 failed dates, countless disappointments, and one shocking betrayal, she gave her heart to Ibrahim, a man who had nothing to his name but his dignity and wisdom. But love is not just about finding someone, it's about keeping them. As society whispers, family doubts, and past mistakes resurface, Aisha and Ibrahim must ask themselves, is love enough to bridge the gap between two worlds? Or will the weight of reality break them apart before they even begin? Aisha had expected resistance from her mother, but she hadn't expected it to come with such force. A woman like you, successful, educated, what business do you have with a man who can barely take care of himself? Mama Fatu's voice rang through the living room, her arms folded tightly across her chest. Aisha exhaled, exhausted from this conversation. Mama, Ibrahim is a good man. He's working hard and he loves me. Mama Fatu scoffed. Love? Can love pay bills? Can love build a home? Can love stop people from talking behind your back? Aisha remained silent. She wanted to say that love was enough. But was it? In the market, the whispers followed her like shadows. She could have married a lawyer, a doctor, a businessman, but look who she chose. Ibrahim? Wasn't he homeless not long ago? She will be the one carrying him. Watch and see. Aisha ignored them, but the words still stung. And at night, when she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the question haunted her. Can love truly survive this? Ibrahim felt it too, the weight of expectations. At school, he loved teaching. The children respected him, listened to his lessons, and looked up to him. But when he stepped outside, he felt the judgment. So, you are Aisha's man? She takes care of you, right? Doesn't it bother you that she earns more than you? He never answered, but every time Aisha paid for dinner or covered a bill, his pride ached. One evening, as they walked out of a restaurant, Aisha casually pulled out her card to pay. Ibrahim's hands curled into fists at his sides. Aisha, he said suddenly. She looked up, confused. Yes? Let me pay? She hesitated. Ibrahim, it's fine. I don't mind. I mind. His voice was firm, but his eyes betrayed something deeper. Pain, insecurity, the need to prove himself. She sighed but handed him the card. If it makes you feel better? He didn't answer, but deep down he knew it wasn't just about paying for a meal. It was about being worthy of her. Just when Aisha thought she had enough to deal with, he returned. Kofi. Gone was the charming liar she had once fallen for. The man standing before her now looked different, humbled, regretful, changed. Aisha, he said softly. She folded her arms. What do you want, Kofi? He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I made mistakes. I hurt you, but I see things differently now. Aisha clenched her jaw. Too late for that. Kofi took a step forward, his gaze unwavering. Is it? Her breath hitched. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he continued. I just want a chance. A real one. No lies this time. Aisha didn't want to believe him, but when she told Ibrahim that Kofi had returned, she saw something in his eyes she had never seen before, jealousy and fear. The tension between them grew like a storm cloud. One night, Ibrahim finally let it out. Maybe your mother was right, he muttered, his hands clenched at his sides. Aisha's stomach dropped. What? Maybe you do need a man who can provide everything for you. Maybe you need someone like Kofi. The words cut her like a blade. She stepped back, her voice shaking. I chose you, Ibrahim, but you have to choose me too. Silence. a silence so heavy it felt like the walls were closing in. Ibrahim looked away, and in that moment Aisha knew this love was hanging by a thread. Aisha and Ibrahim stood in the dim glow of the streetlights, their world shrinking into this moment. Silence hung between them, thick with everything they weren't saying. For weeks, their relationship had been slowly unraveling, not because of a lack of love, but because of the weight of the world pressing down on them. Whispers in the market, Mama Fatu's disapproval, Ibrahim's quiet struggle to prove himself, and then, of course, Kofi. Aisha stared at the man in front of her, the man she had chosen. But was he choosing her back? Or was he letting his pride make the decision for him? Ibrahim, what are we even doing? Aisha's voice was quiet but firm. He let out a breath, rubbing his hands over his face. I don't know anymore, Aisha. Her heart squeezed painfully. I don't know anymore? She took a shaky breath. I have been fighting for us, but I feel like I'm the only one trying. Ibrahim's gaze snapped to hers. That's not fair. Isn't it? She challenged. Because it feels like I'm constantly proving to people that we're worth it. But I shouldn't have to prove it to you. Ibrahim stepped closer, his expression tight with conflict. I never asked you to do that. No, you didn't, she admitted, her voice softer now. But you never stopped me either. And sometimes I feel like you don't believe in us as much as I do. Ibrahim opened his mouth to protest, then closed it, because deep down she was right. I love you, Aisha, he said, his voice raw. Tears welled in her eyes. Then choose me. Ibrahim froze. Not just in the easy moments, she continued. Not just when it feels good. I need to know that you're choosing me, even when things are hard. He looked away, and that one small action told her everything she needed to know. Her heart cracked. You can't, can you? Ibrahim clenched his jaw. It's not that simple. Aisha exhaled slowly, her hands trembling. It is, Ibrahim. It's the simplest thing in the world. You either want this or you don't. His silence was deafening. And just like that, she knew what she had to do. Aisha took a step back. I can't keep holding on to something you're not ready for, she whispered. Ibrahim's head snapped up, panic flashing in his eyes. Aisha, she held up a hand, number not this time. And for the first time in 85 dates, Aisha did what she had never done before. She walked away, not because she didn't love him, but because sometimes love isn't enough. And as she disappeared into the night, Ibrahim stood there, watching the woman he loved slip away, wondering if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Aisha hadn't spoken to Ibrahim in days. Their last conversation still echoed in her mind. Maybe you do need someone like Kofi. The words had cut deeper than she wanted to admit, not because she wanted Kofi, but because it felt like Ibrahim was pushing her away. And maybe, just maybe, she was starting to wonder if he was right. Ibrahim, too, felt the shift. At the community center, he stood in front of his students, trying to focus, but his mind was somewhere else, with her. How had they gone from being so sure about each other to this? That evening, he found himself standing outside Aisha's apartment. He wanted to knock. He wanted to tell her that he was sorry, that he knew he had let his own fears, his own pride create distance between them. But before he could knock, the door opened, and Kofi stepped out. Ibrahim's heart dropped. Kofi saw him and smirked slightly. I was just checking on Aisha, he said casually. Ibrahim clenched his jaw. I'm sure you were. Kofi shrugged. You can be mad at me all you want, but the truth is, a woman like Aisha doesn't wait forever. And with that, he walked away, leaving Ibrahim standing in the dark, drowning in doubt. Inside, Aisha sat on the couch, rubbing her temples. She hadn't invited Kofi over. He just showed up. He had brought dinner, acted like an old friend, and somehow, in her frustration, she let him stay. But it didn't feel right. It wasn't Kofi she wanted. It was Ibrahim. The realization hit her like a storm. She still loved him, but love wasn't enough if he wasn't willing to fight for them. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. She opened it, and there he was, Ibrahim. But something was different. He looked tired, as if he had been fighting a battle inside himself for days. "Aisha," he said, his voice rough with emotion. She folded her arms, waiting. "I saw Kofi leave," he admitted, looking down. She sighed. "He stopped by. I didn't invite him." Ibrahim nodded, but he still looked uneasy. "I let my pride get in the way, Aisha, and I hate that I made you doubt us." She didn't say anything. "I don't have much to offer you," he continued, stepping closer. "But I do know one thing. I want you, and I'm willing to fight for us." Aisha's heart tightened, but before she could speak, he added, "But I need to know, do you still want me?" Silence. Then finally she whispered, "Yes." Loving Ibrahim wasn't going to be easy. They both knew it. People still whispered, still judged. Mama Fatu still disapproved. And Kofi? He wasn't done trying. But Aisha and Ibrahim had made a choice to face the world together. Slowly, Ibrahim started taking on extra tutoring jobs, determined to build a future he could be proud of. Aisha continued to support him, not because he needed her, but because she wanted to. And bit by bit, their love became stronger, steadier, unshakable. Months passed. One evening, under the soft glow of the city lights, Ibrahim took Aisha's hands in his. "I know I'm still building myself," he said, his voice steady, "but I don't want to wait any longer." Aisha's breath caught. He pulled out a simple but meaningful ring. "I don't need perfection. I just need you. Will you marry me?" Tears burned in Aisha's eyes. She was about to say yes when the doorbell rang. She opened it and froze. Kofi stood there, holding an envelope. "You need to see this," he said, handing it to her. Aisha hesitated, then opened it and gasped. Inside was a letter from Ibrahim's past, one that could change everything. What was in that letter? Would it prove that Ibrahim was hiding something? Would Aisha still say yes? Or was their love about to be tested in a way they never expected? The battle isn't over yet. Love is never that simple. To be continued. Watch out for part 3 dropping this Sunday.